The point is now they can not only plan for roadways with CHIPS, how much money they're going to get, they can plan for what they're going to do with the sub-level to look at what's underneath those roadways before and make those changes because the technology is there now. When those roads collapse, it's not twice as much, it's not 3 times as much, it's probably 4, 5, 6 times as much. And I think Carmela's going to tell you what happened in Troy, and sometimes it just does not only affect your community, because she's going to tell you how it affected Half Moon, the town of Half Moon, because they were getting water from the town of Troy. So that's the case we've made. We think we've got some momentum. We'd like to get it in the budget as a line item, just like CHIPS is a line item in there, so we can say to our local communities and elected officials, supervisors, mayors, our council people, trustees, look, now you know what you're going to get to work on that sub-level, the water systems. Now you know what you're going to get for the roads and bridges, and we have the capital projects for the grants and the loans also.
With the CHIPS program is distributed according to a formula. And I will say that working again with the Town of Colony Water and Sewer Department, that the formula that we've adopted favors those places, the older cities like Troy, Schenectady, Albany, Syracuse, that have the oldest infrastructure. We have to remember that many of our cities were once much larger than they are now. They still have an infrastructure, say in Schenectady, for 130,000 people, even though the population today is 65,000. Our formula takes, recognizes that fact. I also wanted to point out, and Jim refers to it as the Hunger Games, but I think all of us in public life, we don't want to see a proliferation of bureaucracy. And one of the problems that we have with these grant-based programs is, particularly for smaller municipalities, they don't have the funds to hire people, to apply for grants. And then a lot of times, if they don't get the grant, it's a complete waste of money for them. They get discouraged, they don't apply. Also, we got to have a lot of state employees to sit around and evaluate who's going to get the grants. So that wastes state resources, and it takes a lot of time up, and the money doesn't get out as quickly as it should. So we feel that a standard formula, such as is contained in this legislation and as is done with CHIPS, is the right way to go.
That we do need this predictable, fair formula each year to come out. I think the CHIPS program has been a great program, and I think that this is a great sister program to have with it.
You can see up here, it's very clear what we're talking about. We're talking about the CHIPS program, which is a wonderfully successful template. The program has broad support, widespread support throughout the state, and that's for a lot of reasons. One, every New Yorker shares in the funds. Every New Yorker benefits from the funding that is allocated, and the funding is allocated in a fair and equitable manner. Those are all very important with regard to any state or federal funding programs. So this program is designed to copy a very successful template. Why start from scratch when you have something that you can replicate that works so well? Now, with every municipality, we all have challenges with infrastructure: sanitary sewer, stormwater, drinking water. There isn't a municipality in New York State that does not have challenges in one of those 3 areas. And that's why, again, this program is meant to provide flexibility for each and every municipality. Now, some people might say that, well, say a town like Clifton Park might get, if you base it on the CHIPS program, maybe $350,000 a year, and that's not enough to cover your paving budget. And the money you might get from the SWAP program is not going to be enough to cover all of your infrastructure needs, and that's absolutely true, but it's all about the time value of money. So if a municipality like Clifton Park receives $350,000 a year, over 10 years, that's $3.5 million. And we can do an incredible amount of infrastructure maintenance and replacement, whether it be roads or pipes in the ground, over a 10-year time with $3.5 million. The other thing that this program does, it gives us, as local municipal leaders, better flexibility, and visibility with regard to the funding that we will receive. Now, if we all have, which we do, infrastructure initiatives and objectives that we would like to accomplish in a given year, if we know that we're going to receive this additional funding and seed money, it gives us a head start on planning for that year. So right now, we're putting together our engineering programs, our pre-planning for a particular infrastructure initiative. So when the spring construction season begins, we're getting in the ground and we're getting that infrastructure initiative completed. So think about the power. If you had all of this funding going across the entirety of New York State, with every municipality receiving funding, all getting ready for that spring construction season, and all these projects are lined up to happen, the incredible amount of shovel-ready jobs and the jolt that it would give to the economy of New York State would just be tremendous. So there's many positives. I want to thank all of my colleagues. I especially want to thank Senator Tedisco, as always, for being the best legislative member in New York State. I want to thank Assemblyman McLaughlin. He was here last year when we had a press conference a year ago on this same subject. I want to thank him, and also Assemblyman Steck for all his support. Thank you very much.
So, but I do want to say to the senator and to Phil Steck and to the other assembly member that's here and our assemblywoman, this is great because it is another funding mechanism that we can utilize to help with our infrastructure. Because the hardest thing when I go around and I talk about our budget and I'm like, yeah, our budget's $651 million. We're not raising taxes, or if we have to, it's hard to sell the fact that you fix the infrastructure, because no one wants to hear that. You know, they want to see a project, or they want to see how it benefit them, and I'm like, well, it really did, Mrs. Smith, because now you can flush your toilet without a problem, or you can get good, clean drinking water. They don't want to hear that, you know?
At this time last year, you could actually hop into a kayak and go down Fifth Ave. We had one of the largest water main breaks in the history of Troy. We were shut down in North Troy, Lansingburg, for about 3 weeks. And Fifth Ave was an actual creek. Saying that, we found out last night, we were going over our fourth quarter financials. And last night, our comptroller told us that during that period of time, we lost over $100,000 from the town of Waterford and the town of Half Moon, because Troy provides water to those communities. So sometimes you look at the direct impact. Obviously, we were shut down, people didn't have water, but because we serviced and provided water to Waterford and Half Moon, we actually lost over $100,000. And as mentioned earlier, County Exec McCoy mentioned it perfectly, infrastructure is not sexy. And it's not just about drinking water, public safety, it's about economic development. Who wants to come to a community that doesn't have solid infrastructure? So this particular dedicated fund, the City Council passed unanimously, bipartisan last year, a resolution supporting this legislation. I want to thank Senator Tedisco, Assemblyman Steck, Assemblyman McLaughlin, and certainly all the other colleagues for their effort, and certainly the City of Troy would benefit from this greatly, and we look forward to working with you. So thank you. Thank you.